there, and thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight Black Voices. I'm Angel Ito. Brandis Friedman has the evening off. On the show tonight, the city's west side bore the brunt of this week's heavy rains, with hundreds of residents seeing flooded basements. We'll hear from affected residents. Addressing violent crime with the city's first deputy mayor of community safety, Garion Gatewood. A preview of a new documentary about the history of baseball's Negro Leagues.
Now it's not 100 people, it's 40,000 people.
And the Silver Room Block Party prepares for its last dance in Hyde Park. And all of that coming up, but our first story tonight, checking in with residents on the west side who are still dealing with the aftermath of heavy rainfall days later. That's right after this.
Chicago Tonight, Black Voices, is made possible in part by Fifth Third Bank and by the support of these donors.
At Fifth Third, we believe when diverse voices are heard and empowered, communities are made stronger, lives are made better, and the future holds greater promise for all. That's why we're proud to support Chicago Tonight Black Voices. Together, we can make a difference. Together, we can drive change.
The entire city was drenched with torrential rain earlier this week, but residents on the west side were especially hit hard as over 8 inches of rain fell in the Austin community and nearby suburbs. Now, as Austin residents are emptying their basements of ruined property and looking at costly repairs, many are asking why so many homes in their neighborhood flooded while much of the rest of the city escaped the same fate. Joining us are Alderwoman Emma Mitz of the West Side's 37th Ward, Stephen Robinson, Executive Director of Northwest Austin Council, Martin Coffer, a leader with the community group West Side Rising, and Andrea Chang, the Commissioner of the Chicago Department of Water Management. Now, we also invited the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, but they said no representatives were available. So here is what Kevin Fitzpatrick, Assistant Director of Engineering, said about why the West Side took on so much water earlier this week on Chicago Tonight.
We've seen this lately in these weather patterns. It was sort of, they call it a microburst, or where the rainstorm really just sat in this area. And in general, Chicago got about 3 to 4 inches, but Cicero, the west side of Chicago, they measured 8.9 inches of rain over 12 hours on Sunday. And combined with a little bit of rain before and a little rain after, it's unprecedented amounts, and it's something that's very difficult to deal with.
Alderwoman Mitz, let's start with you. Can you give us a picture of what proportion of homes in Austin flooded this week?
I would tell you all the homes flooded, all of them. Everywhere I go, all around, including myself, started just with my block, 3 feet of water in the basement. And every home that I've been to, 3 to 4 feet of water, which destroyed everything. And in our community, we have people who live in their basement, who have business in their basement, daycares that they're operating, and to lose everything is just heartbreaking. I am exhausted, I am frustrated, but I continue to fight until we can get some help. We need help. We have furnace that's not working. We can't wash our clothes. And not only that, our hot water heaters are out. And it's not easy to replace these things. And we need help.
Now, Martin, I understand that your home was one of the ones that was flooded. Tell us a little bit about what you're personally experiencing.
Yes, first and foremost, thank you for having me. Just a small correction. I live in West Dartford Park. West Dartford Park was hit just as well as the Austin community. And for my home, just as Alderman Miss was saying, 3 feet of water, even more. It came up to right above my knee, my basement. Had to replace our furnace, hot water tank, washer, dryer, clothes that we had down there in the basement, because that was our area where we would wash our clothes, iron, hang our clothes in that particular space. So it's just been really difficult. It seems like it just came out of nowhere. So, so yeah, it's really difficult. Still dealing with it.
Thank you for that correction, Martin. It is clear that the flooding extended beyond Austin, but it's seemingly the entire city's west side. So, Stephen, let's go to you. Can you give us a breakdown of if residents have a clear understanding of how the flooding even occurred?
Well, many people believe that it came in from their downspout. There are others that are saying they have muddy water that's coming into their basins, which means it came from the actual sewer system. But I believe it's a combination of both. This isn't anything that's very unusual because we had a flood like this several years ago, which was probably one of the biggest back in 1997. And FEMA literally came out and rescued everyone because we needed it. It was, people are in dire straits right now. I know of one individual. She's in hospice right now, and she lives in a basement apartment. And they had to literally find another location for her to live in. But the daughter that's taking care of her doesn't have transportation to go to the further out location. So they ended up trying to clean up what they had to keep at least the bedroom, sanitized and livable, so that the mother can have her last days. But it's a really terrible situation that we're dealing with. I mean, there's so many people that have been devastated. You can see it just by the amount of garbage and trash that's being put out. I've had a number of calls just the first day of it. It started around 2 o'clock or so on Sunday, and then all of a sudden we got a flood of calls and people, coming in on our podcast show to talk about what literally happened. I mean, at our facility, we had 6 garbage cans floating around in the backyard, and we're on a flat land right near the alley. So you can imagine.
Wow. So, Andrea, we're hearing muddy water, sewages that are kind of seemingly clogged. Can you clarify maybe what the responsibility of the Department of Water Management has in scenarios like this, and what the responsibility is?
Sure, yeah. And, this storm, just to echo what everyone's saying here, was truly unprecedented. The equivalent is about 84 to 96 inches of snow, just to kind of put that in context for folks. But, this region's sewer system simply does not have the capacity to handle this kind of extraordinary volume of rain that came down mostly in about a 10-hour period. The Department of Water Management and the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District work together on sewer systems in the area. So just so everyone knows, the water sort of flows from the sewer mains in the streets over to MWRD's interceptor tunnels that are about 30 to 45 feet underground, then to larger tunnels from MWRD that are about 200 feet underground, then to their reservoirs, then to water treatment plants. So all of us work together to play a role in keeping everyone, managing stormwater in Chicago. So what Department of Water Management does in these situations, obviously 311 calls are coming in. Most of these were water in basements, but also some water in streets, flooded viaducts. We had about 8,000 of those come in. 1,900 alone were in Alderman Mitt's ward, so very significant. And we put out all of our resources, all of our crews, to be able to go out and address each one of those 311 calls, look and see what's going on, clean the sewer mains in those areas, making sure that the reason that people are flooding are not because of some kind of clog in the sewer main. Looking at the catch basins that are nearby. Those are the little pieces that you see in the street that have a collection system that collect that storm water and send it to the sewers. So we look for things that might be clogging that, leaves, bags, to help get the flow down into the sewer. And we also make sure people know about our private sewer drain program in case people are having problems with their private sewer drain, which is the part that connects the home to the sewer main. So all of that, trying to make sure we're triaging and prioritizing areas in the hardest hit parts of the city. But we also, are doing this as a part of OEMC's coordination. That's the Office of Emergency Management and Communication, making sure, they're monitoring weather conditions and coordinating the efforts of all the city departments, including Streets and Sand, who's going out and picking up some of that damaged furniture. So sort of a whole of government approach here in trying to help as much as we can.
Andrea, I just want to ask a small follow-up to something that you mentioned earlier. You said that the sewages don't really have the capacity for the amount of water that we received, but seemingly the flooding is specific to the city's west side. Can you speak to why that part of our city was hit harder than other areas, if you are doing the work to make sure that the sewages and the drain pipes and everything are clear throughout the city?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, we've seen this in the last couple of rain events. These, with climate change, these very isolated, intense storms. So when we map our water in basements compared to the rainfall that happened on Sunday, it's a very good correlation. So the simple answer for the west side is it was an intense amount of storm water that fell in that area. The storm sort of stalled out and stayed in the area. We sort of saw that, if you recall, last September, there was a very bad event as well that happened, and it stalled out in that case over the north side. And that's where we saw water in basements. And then before that in July on the southwest side. So it's correlating to where that storm is stalling out. That's a little different with climate change than what we would previously have seen, where a storm sort of moves across the city.
Alderwoman Mitz, I want to go back to you. Can you tell us a little bit about the resources that you all are providing for residents on the west side to get them the assistance that they need?
So right now, I'm working along with all of the departments from the city, from the mayor's office to the OMC to the CDOT, water management, streets and sand. And streets and sand just called the commissioner. 160 tons of garbage that's been moved in the last 3 days, and we are nowhere halfway done with our cleaning yet. Now, if that's not an emergency, 160 tons has been taken out over the last 3 or 4 days and they worked all through the 4th of July. But in addition to that, I met with OMC on this morning, literally taking them out door to door so that they could see, in order to gather the information that they needed to be able to supply to IEMA, which is the Illinois Emergency Management System, to give to the governor in order to be able to get us declared the declaration for some assistance from the federal government.
Well, I'm sorry to cut you off there.
They have to go through, and they needed to be able to.
I'm so sorry to cut you off there, Alderwoman Mitz. It looks like we are out of time. All thanks to Alderwoman Emma Mitz, Martin Coffer, Stephen Robinson, and Andrea Chang. And up next, transforming the city's approach to violence. That's in a conversation recorded earlier with Brandis Friedman.
Within hours of taking office last month, Mayor Brandon Johnson created a new position, Deputy Mayor of Community Safety. And that person is tasked with leading efforts on an issue that was the cornerstone of Johnson's mayoral campaign, addressing the long-term root causes of crime and violence in the city. And that person is Garyon Gatewood, the city's first ever Deputy Mayor of Community Safety. He joins us now. Prior to this role, he most recently served as director of the Illinois Justice Project, a nonprofit working on criminal justice reform. Deputy Mayor, thank you for joining us. Congrats on the new position.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
So why the change from Deputy Mayor Public Safety to the change from Deputy Mayor Public Safety to Community Safety, which was the title of the role under Mayor Lightfoot?
Absolutely. So that's a great question. Mayor Johnson wanted to take a different approach, right? We've taken this approach to public safety, and we wanted to take a comprehensive approach to community safety, meaning we wanted to have more input from community on how we build our long-term community safety strategies and partnership. As you've seen through other time frames, people who were in this position were kind of cycled throughout. We wanted to have a more comprehensive approach to this work and do it in a partnership and collaboration led by community.
How will you manage your success in this role? Is there tangible numbers or actions that you'll look to say, this is what's working for me?
Well, I would say this. I think how we impact people in the city of Chicago, right? I don't want to base success off numbers, because when we think about numbers, we're talking about people. We're talking about the people in the city. So we really want to think about how we make long-term investments in the citizens of Chicago, how we talk with community, how we engage with community and actually hear what people need, and how we really start to address those root causes by taking a full force of government approach by giving the resources that are needed in those communities.
How does all that look? What does it look like? And how will you be addressing public safety differently from what we've seen previously?
Sure. So you'll see us out a lot more as we continue to build our team, our community safety team overall. We're going to be in places all over the city, not only having conversations, but really bringing in folks for real detailed discussions on how they view community safety, what the resources that are needed. And again, like I said earlier, how do we take that full of government approach? Meaning, it's not just around what happens in violence, it also means what are we doing to improve the quality of life in particular communities? How do we make sure we provide those resources? How do we work collaboratively with sister agencies, our partners in the community, our partners in business, our partners in philanthropy? How do we pull everybody together to the table so we can have a comprehensive approach to the things that we've seen throughout the city?
You know, based on your experience, what have you seen that actually works to reduce crime and violence?
Well, I think we have to invest in people. Right? I think there's a multiple layer approach, right? It's not a one size fits all. It's not a one answer to this. So we can invest in people, and at the same time, we can work along with the law enforcement community as well as the community violence intervention community and young folks, right? So how do we pull all of these resources together, again, to really start targeting areas that are in the most dire need in the city?
What should the city be doing to address crime, especially gun violence, you know, during the summer months?
Well, we have to, one, continue to work together collaboratively. Two, continue to activate safe spaces around the city, meaning we have to listen to our youth. We have to provide the resources that are needed to create and activate those safe spaces. And also, we have to be thoughtful around how we deploy our resources. And when I say deploy resources, I don't just mean how we deploy law enforcement. You know, how do we deploy our peacekeepers? How do we deploy our CVI workers? How do we, again, deploy the resources that are needed in youth organizations and organizations around the city? And how do we do that collaboratively with law enforcement? How do we do all of this together under the same umbrella?
You were right behind Mayor Johnson at today's One Summer Chicago kickoff event. There were nearly 2 applicants for every job in the program. How does the city address that unmet need and sort of use jobs as a vehicle to, like you said, improve quality of life, reduce violence?
Yeah, so jobs are one big mechanism to reducing violence. How we address that need is we continue to grow the areas in which we can give jobs to folks. Not only giving jobs through our sister agencies throughout the city, but again, this goes back to the point earlier on how we collaborate, right? You saw a lot of the business community there, Amazon, you saw the Cubs, you saw the Chamber. So how do we continue to work with folks, not just the summer jobs, but how do we think about those long-term, year-round jobs, and also the jobs that lead to a longer-term career trajectory? We want to be thoughtful and intentional about this and continue those relationships, right? People are hungry for jobs. The business community is hungry to give jobs, as well as the government. So we have to work together in collaboration.
Of course, the search is on for the city's next police superintendent. How do you think your work will fit into what the Chicago Police Department does, and how do you plan on working with them?
We plan on being very collaborative, right? We plan on being supportive. We plan on being collaborative. And we also understand that we didn't get to this problem where we are alone, and we won't get out of these problems that we see in the city alone. So we'll work in great collaboration.
Of course, you're leading, as you've mentioned, cross-government efforts to address this issue. You know, what other agencies, what other institutions outside of city agencies are responsible for this, for community safety?
Oh, gosh, all of us, right? As we sit here, if you are in the city of Chicago, we're all responsible for community safety. One thing that often comes up when people say, hey, you took a big job. What I always say is we took a big job, right? Because we're all responsible for community safety. Everything we do, education, healthcare, economics, all things lead back to that role of feeling safe, being safe, and actually creating that safety. So it's not just what we can do in city government, it's also what we can do across the board. And again, this is why we're taking a collaborative approach, not just with the full force of government, but the full force of community and our different partners around the table.
What are the obstacles, major obstacles you can foresee? What are your challenges going to be?
Who knows, right? We'll see. Obviously, we see a lot of challenges with the levels of violence in the city, but also we have to understand that we cannot base success solely on violence. We have to approach this from a different perspective. We have to address the violence, but also while addressing the systemic disinvestment that we've seen as well. So we have to do both of those. It's not a or, it's an and.
And obviously, there's going to be a financial component along the way, right? What kind of financial investment is going to be necessary to make an impact?
Well, we'll see, right? These are the conversations that we'll have with our community partners so we can get a better sense of what those investments that are needed, and then we'll be able to really address that later on down the line. We want our investments to reflect the needs of the people in the city, and that's what they will do.
Okay, Gary and Gatewood, 3 weeks on the job as Deputy Mayor of Public Safety, Community Safety. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Of course. Back with more Chicago Tonight Black Voices right after this.
While modern pro baseball draws its players from all over the globe, America's pastime wasn't always so diverse. Through archival footage and interviews, the new film documentary, The League, gives an in-depth look at how black baseball players forever changed the game. The film was the brainchild of producer Byron Motley, whose late father, Bob Motley, was the last living Negro Leagues umpire.
So my first interview was with my father and Buck O'Neill and a couple other players at the Negro League Baseball Museum, my hometown in Kansas City. And so I flew there and took a little crew with me and had raised a little money to start the process, and just started doing these interviews and falling in love. I mean, really in love with each of these men and women who were a part of the story. It's American history, and it may be history that most people don't know about. And it came at a time when Blacks really needed to create something of their own. And they did that with baseball. Black players were the first to go to Latin American countries and introduce the game of baseball to Latin Americans through Cuba, Puerto Rico, Venezuela, you name it. And Blacks were the first to go to Japan to play baseball. So with the influx of great Japanese players in the majors now, I always say that they are byproducts of the Negro Leagues as well, because their ancestors learned the game from these great Black players. It's beautiful history, and it's fun and it's engaging. And for me, it was life-changing.
Now, The League is showing at select theaters across Chicago on July 9th, 10th, and 12th. You'll find more details on our website. And from its beginnings in Wicker Park to its present-day location in Hyde Park, the Silver Room has become more than a jewelry store. Now, the shop's eclectic offerings, curated by owner Eric Williams, helped create an equally eclectic community over the last 3 decades. And the spirit of that community inspired Williams to start the Silver Room Block Party in 1997 as a scrappy celebration of music, dance, and art. But now in its 18th summer, Williams says this will be the festival's last dance. Producer Erica Gunderson has the story.
The first one, I still remember just the anticipation of it happening. It was a perfect summer day, and just when the music comes on, it's like, wow, we're actually doing this.
Today, the Silver Room Block Party is a massive event in Hyde Park. Tens of thousands of people gather to dance, eat, shop, and celebrate. But Silver Room owner Eric Williams says the first event, which he staged in an alley next to his eclectic Wicker Park jewelry store in 1997, wasn't big enough to call a block party.
It was more of a customer appreciation party, honestly, is what it really was. I had been open for about 4 years, and in that time I met all of these interesting people from different parts of the music industry. And so I'm like, it would be kind of cool to have an event that really features my customers in some ways. I'm in my 20s. Wicker Park was very vibrant, very diverse. I had no money, didn't know what I was doing.
Williams says he had been trying to get city festivals to include more Black and brown acts in their lineups without much luck.
And they just always had some reason to say no. And I'm like, you know what, I'm not gonna keep begging them, I'll just start it myself. And I called up some friends, some customers, oh, what do you do? I paint. Okay, cool, having this event, and that was really it. And it was just this free event. I mean, I went to Home Depot, got some extension cords. I ran the cords from my house upstairs down to the alley, and that powered the entire block party. The first 10 years, we had no vendors. We had no security, we had no nothing. So those first ones were great. They were magical because it was just so pure. And my thought process was, okay, our store can be a little bit busier. That can help pay for this block party that costs, $400,
Over the years, the event outgrew its alley, and Williams says he continued to absorb much of the cost himself. In 2015, when the Silver Room and the Block Party moved to the heart of Hyde Park, the event took on an even bigger profile and expense.
When we moved down here is when it really escalated, and it just became this huge ordeal, because now it's not 100 people, it's 40,000 people. You go from $400 to over $1 million. It's a little bit different.
The event remained free to attend until the 2022 festival, which was ticketed. Now the owner of multiple businesses, Williams says it's tough to continue taking on the labor and cost that goes into creating the Block Party.
I don't think if the average person understands how much time, resource, money is involved in creating an event like this. It's almost a year, basically. And we don't have like a team of 100 people. It's like me and like 3 or 4 friends.
And Williams says that's a big part of why the 18th year of the Silver Room Block Party will be its last.
I think it's time. Sometimes things need to end, and I'm happy. It's been a great 18-year run and had an impact on so many people, so many artists. People are really sad about it, and to me it's not a time to be sad, it's a celebration. I'm looking forward to it, looking forward to dancing, I'm looking forward to seeing some old friends. People are like, what are you going to do? I'm like, I have like 8 jobs, so I'm...
Don't worry, I'll stay busy.
I'm good.
For Chicago Tonight, Black Voices, this is Erica Gunderson.
And even though this will be the last Silver Room Sound System Block Party, Williams says he still has some surprises up his sleeve. And that's our show for tonight. Now for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, Black Voices, I'm Angelito. I'll see you next time.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm, and proud sponsor of programming that offers advice and strategies to enhance the physical and mental well-being of fellow legal practitioners in Illinois.